Just a quick request. For those of you that are vaccinated, you're more than welcome to not wear a mask. If you're not, we would ask that you do wear a mask. Will the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for Wednesday, July 7, 2021, please come to order. For the benefit of those who may not have participated in Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, our procedures are as follows. 1, the Secretary will read the legal call of the meeting as published in the local newspapers. 2, the applicant will be invited to come forward and present the case, explaining to the Commission and others present what is being requested of this property. Comments of town agencies will be read for each application if there are any. There will be clarifying questions from commissioners. There will be then the opportunity for clarifying questions from the audience. Given the extent of interest in one of our applications, we are requesting those interested in speaking to please sign in. Once we get to the public comment portion of our hearing, we will ask if you're still interested in speaking. This is your opportunity to be heard by the Commission. As this is a public hearing, it must be recorded. It is necessary for speakers to identify themselves and state their name and address before addressing the Commission. 4, the applicant will then have the opportunity to address any questions or concerns raised by the public or commissioners. 5, at the conclusion of public comments, the commissioners will decide to either close the public hearing or continue to a later date. 6, once the hearing is closed, the applicant is then free to leave or remain for the balance of the public hearing and regular meeting. Each applicant will be notified in writing as to the decision of this commission and has the right to appeal to Superior Court if desired. Decisions of this meeting are available the day after the meeting by calling the Planning and Zoning Office at 453-8039 or emailing planning.zoning@ci.guilford.ct.us after 9 a.m. Seated this evening are the following members. Frank DeAndrea, Jamie Stein, where's Jamie? Jamie, on the end, sorry. Alan Brown, Scott Edmond, Sean Cosgrove, Richard Wallace, and I am Phil Johnson. Staff present are George Krall, our town planner, Aaron Mannix, our zoning enforcement officer, and Lisa Piombino, our planning and zoning administrative assistant. The videographer this evening is Shannon Gale. Welcome back. The secretary will now read the legal notice, but as there is no legal notice...
Excuse me, Phil?
Yes.
Bill is also here.
I'm sorry, Bill Freeman is also here, and he will sit for our first item and then be recused for our second item. Would someone like to make a motion to open?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Against? Abstain? Motion carries. First item, Ron DeGennaro Development, petition for regular amendment to Article XXV III 28, if my math is right. Mixed use open space zone, section 273-22A, to allow housing designated and intended to be of a community nature, including detached cluster or attached single-family units. This is continued from our June 2nd meeting, 2021. Is someone here to present on behalf of DeGennaro?
I'm here.
Thank you. If you would like to come up to the mic so everyone can see.
I'm prepared to present, my attorney didn't show up.
Okay. If you would...
I'm assuming we're all presented this way?
Sure, yeah, Ron, if you wanted to step up, I think, as you indicated, Attorney Corseiden could not attend this evening, made a presentation on the record at the first round of the public hearing. The only new information that has come in from the applicant was a letter of support from the property owners, correct?
Correct.
And that is part of our record here. And I think the only other correspondence that we have is from the public on behalf of Guilford Preservation Alliance, and Jurioni is here to read her letter into the record.
If you don't mind, why don't we go straight to Shirley's letter? We'll go from there. And I would again ask people as they come to the podium to please state your name and address for the record.
Shirley Jurioni, 122 Broad Street, Guilford, President of the Guilford Preservation Alliance, and I'm here on behalf of the Board of the Alliance in support of the application. Planning and Zoning Commission members. Guilford Preservation Alliance supports the application for a change of Regulation Amendment Article 28, Mixed Use Open Space Zone, Section 273-222A, to eliminate age restriction. The requested change, however, is only the first step in the Commission's role in the approval and development process of this property. We believe that the State Street property at issue is particularly context sensitive and must be reviewed as such. It is located in the National Register District, adjacent to numerous historic homes, within walking distance of the historic town green, adjacent to two historic districts. In 2008, or about, as the result of a previous application, the Commission, its Planning Committee, and Planning Department staff recommended a change in the zoning for this and adjoining properties from industrial to the current mixed-use open space zone. As part of the review process, the Planning Committee worked with staff and neighbors to ensure that any development in the zone would be consistent with all other existing town plans, including the Plan of Conservation and Development and the Transportation Plan. Any development in this zone now requires a special permit, which can be granted by the Commission only if the application reflects the specific criteria identified in the report. The criteria include open space set aside, high architectural standards with mandatory design review, links to walkways, bike paths, and roadways to provide vehicular and pedestrian access to other properties in the zone, and master planning with contiguous properties to ensure proper planning of the above links. Since the existing zone plan for the site was created, additional planning initiatives have been established by the State Board of Selectmen and Planning and Zoning, which should be also incorporated in the permitting/planning process. These include safe street, sustainability, and some affordable housing to be located near the town center, schools, and transportation. There is an existing zone on the books that in multi-dwelling complex, there can be an incentive for the developer to build a couple units of affordable housing, and in return, he or she gets a little bit of a higher density, I should say. Because of this and of the remaining development opportunities near the center of town, we strongly recommend the re-engagement of the Planning Committee to ensure that all these requirements are met. And we believe that by doing so, a result that can be achieved that can at once protect the historic nature of State Street, improve the property values for the proposed development, as well as neighbors, and increase the town tax base, enhance the diversity, protect wetlands and our natural environment, expand public open space, add to the attractiveness of the community, reduce wasted time and controversy in the approval process for Commission, applicants, and the public. The GPA believes that this is a unique opportunity to demonstrate how the applicant, Planning and Zoning Department, the Planning and Zoning Commission, NGOs, and other property owners can collaborate to create a model for other development proposals going forward, a process that works in many other communities. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Shirley. Questions from commissioners with respect to this application? If you recall, and correct me where I'm wrong, we've eliminated the requirement that this be 55 and older housing, and moved that to more non-age restricted and cluster housing. And that was all presented at our June 2nd meeting. Obviously, that was all via Zoom. But if anyone has any questions for the applicant, we can proceed with those. Seeing none, I'll put it to the audience. Are there any questions with respect to the application and what they're seeking? Would anyone like to speak in favor of this application? Would anyone like to speak against it? With no one seeking to speak either in favor or against, would someone like to make a motion to close?
There's somebody in the back door.
I'm sorry?
There's a hand up.
Oh, sorry. Yes, if you could step up. Come on up. And state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Linda Van Steenbergen, 191 Clyde Marsh Road in Guilford. I'm here in support of Eunice and the...
Sorry, we're not talking about
You
Little
know,
West.
I apologize. It's very hard to hear you, what
sorry.
you were speaking of with the...
I'll try and get a little closer.
Thank you.
So,
Sorry.
we'll get to you. Are you signed in to speak? If you could sign in, we'll call you as your name comes up.
Thank you.
You
I haven't done this
bet.
before.
We'll see you in a
Sorry.
few. Would someone like to make a motion to close?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're just going to move straight to deliberation on this one. Would someone like to make a motion?
Sure. Voted that the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve a petition for a regulation amendment to Article XXV III, Mixed Use / Open Space Zone Section 273-222A, to allow housing designed and intended to be of a community nature, including detached, cluster, or attached single-family units, as heard at a public hearing on June 2nd, 2021. This amendment is approved based on the finding that it will allow housing in this zone district for all household types in accordance with the Plan of Conservation Development. This amendment is effective on June 11th, 2021.
Is that correct on the date?
July 16th for the effective date?
July 16th, 2021.
Also note that the public hearing is June 2nd and July 7th.
Public hearing on June 2nd and July 7th.
Thank you, Scott.
Second.
Discussion? Pretty straightforward?
Changed. Pretty straightforward, Phil.
Yeah, I have a...
I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Jamie has a
Just a...
Sorry?
comment.
It's a long day, though. I just wanted to... Is this working?
That's only for the...
You gotta do the silver. You should have had a lesson
We should
beforehand.
have had a tutorial. Apologies.
You have to be pretty close to it.
Thank you. Can you all hear me? Okay, great. I just wanted to hear from staff your thoughts on the really great, I think, recommendations in the Guilford Preservation Alliance's letter. In particular, I'm interested in this, this idea of comprehensive planning around the adjacent sites. And I just wonder if there's precedent or some sort of opportunity that exists to do that for this particular development.
That is a specific requirement of this zone. If you read the text of the MUOS zone, there is a requirement that master planning of adjoining properties be part of a special permit application.
Yeah,
I think
you gotta be on a mic, George. Apologies.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. That the question was, is there any precedent for this concept of master planning or comprehensive planning of adjoining parcels? And my comment was that is a specific requirement of this zone district, which was written as the letter from the GPA said at the time this zone district was created. So to my knowledge, it's the only zone district in our zoning code that has that requirement, and we've never really done that. It is the obligation of the applicant to do that master planning, and it will be an interesting challenge for us to work with the applicant should a development move forward in trying to make that happen. In some ways, it's something that you would think you would want to do for any kind of new development, at least take into consideration how that development might affect or relate to what might happen on adjoining properties. But this actually makes that an explicit requirement for any special permit application. So I think that's why the GPA is particularly interested in perhaps invoking the participation or suggesting the participation of the planning committee and perhaps others to kind of do that. So it'll be a good model for us to see how that might be implemented. I don't know if that exactly answers your question,
Sure.
but those are I think that is what we had in mind.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other comments? Yes. Richard?
I've heard a few, George and I have been down this road on this piece before.
Right.
This is by far the best plan that I've seen for this parcel.
Terrific. We have a motion, we have a second. Unless there's other questions or discussions, I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Right.
Anyone against? Abstained? Motion carries. Our next item is Eunice Demond, 311 Old Whitfield Street, map 3, lot 23, zone R3, special permit request for section 273-16A, table 4, line 16, to allow nonprofit philanthropic wildlife rescue and rehabilitation use, continued from June 2nd. Before we proceed, I'd like to just read a quick statement. I'd like to detail the process for the continuation of Eunice Demond's hearing, as we are meeting in person this evening. We will first open with the applicant to offer her the opportunity to present any new information to the commission. We will then continue forward with public comment, calling upon persons who have signed up and are interested in speaking. There is a speaker sign-up sheet available. If you have not already done so, please fill out your name and address for the record. As we have many members of the public here seeking to be heard, it is essential that order of this meeting be respected and upheld. During public comment, we will go down the list of speakers in order of sign-up. In an effort to allow all interested parties a chance to be heard, we are asking speakers to keep their comments to 3 minutes or less and requiring individuals' comments to be limited to 5 minutes. It would be helpful to keep your comments detailed yet concise. You will have one opportunity to be heard. The applicant will then have an opportunity to address any questions and concerns after all public comments are finished. Interruptions, outbursts, or other disruptive activities from the audience will not be allowed. You'll be asked to leave the meeting if they continue. If you brought signs, please line them up along the wall to allow for audience members an unobstructed view of the meeting. If you have any materials to submit for the record, you may do so during your public comment. Please keep in mind any materials submitted will be retained as part of the official record of this application. Thank you in advance for your time and cooperation while attending this evening's public meeting. Let's get started. Can I have a motion to reopen the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. If you could state your name and address for the record, that would be terrific.
Thanks. Good evening. I'm Attorney Thomas Crosby. I represent Eunice Demond, and thank you again for your opportunity to address you. I think that we left the last meeting where I had reserved my right to make some comments in rebuttal to some things that Attorney Shansky had presented, or perhaps others, and we kind of gave up whatever time we had to, accommodate those few people that we were able to reach last time. Nice to be back in person. Glad you're here. I had to dust off my tripod. It was a little, please don't examine it too closely. It may not look like it's exactly perfectly balanced. As you know, Eunice operates the Little Rascals Rescue and Rehabilitation, and the property's been in her family, where Eunice, there you are, since the 1890s. We presented, I think at the last hearing, there were two concerns, or there were probably other concerns, but two major concerns. And one was, did we have a professional site plan? So we've since received a professional site plan drawn by Frank Pannenborg. He's a licensed architect. I'm going to go over that just in a few minutes. And of course, another major concern, which I assume you've watched the Board of Selectmen activity the last few days, but there was an amendment to the ordinance. So even though this didn't prohibit you from taking zoning action, there was a concern raised at the last hearing that the ordinance 131.5 had a prohibition against harboring raccoons or feeding raccoons within Guilford. That has now been amended. I think it was yesterday morning, and it now has accepted RVS rehabilitators such as Eunice Demond. So again, although I would have made the legal argument that it was irrelevant to your decision, I think that concern that you might have had, or the commission members might have, concern has been resolved, as now someone with the rabies vector certification that Eunice has, she's accepted from that ordinance which prohibited her handling them or feeding them or keeping them. I submitted a letter, which I assume you've all received on July 1, 2021, to Mr. Johnson, and of course I gave you copies for the others. The letter was in response to Brittany Shansky. I think she's here somewhere. I saw maybe check in a little while ago. And she had submitted a letter, as you remember, on June 1. Well, it was dated June 1, but it was actually submitted the afternoon of the public hearing. And the first thing I wanted to mention, and then, again, I want to be clear at the outset. I'm taking this is no personal shots at anyone or their integrity or their objectivity. However, the Connecticut General Statutes require you to make a finding or to state on the record when someone recuses themselves. So we have a situation, and rather than, kind of, talk about it like it's in the shadows, the reality is that William Freeman and his wife live next door to Eunice DeMond and this operation. And William Freeman is on your commission. And so under 8-21, that statute specifically requires us to ensure, and I know that this is, again, directed in a balanced way, to ensure that the PZC will not favor the position of a colleague against someone who's an applicant. And it makes common sense, and I don't think that anything needs to be said more about it, but I think I do need to say that what we want to assure or be assured of is that in the previous presentation I made, I did describe the circumstances and events that led to why are we here? Good question. Why are you here? Well, we're here with a special permit application because we got a cease and desist order. Why did you get a cease and desist order? Because William Freeman wrote the planning and zoning officer and asked that this be considered a violation and a cease and desist order issued. So that cease and desist order I've submitted. It's dated January 7th. I've appealed that to the ZBA. But while that appeal is pending, I wanted to make it clear that we're not waiving our claims or defenses that this has been an operation that's been ongoing for some period of time. We've had not only the town investigate or inspect this, we've not only had the state investigate it, we've had, I see a police officer back there, we've had the police contact Eunice in the middle of the night with, some type of animal in distress, either was struck by a car or is abandoned, and they brought those to Eunice in the middle of the night. And so the town has, in a sense, been embracing this operation, which has been ongoing for a number of years. And I've already pointed out my point about, the Freemans buying the empty lot, building a house, and now they're next to what has been an ongoing operation for a number of years. I think, yes, there was a complaint. I think you've got the records from that. I won't go over that, but there was a complaint in 2019. Again, I've given you the records to show that was cleaned up. What does that show? It shows that every time there's been any kind of concern, Eunice DeMond has taken the steps and made the efforts to try to improve and address any kinds of concerns. Secondarily, it shows the town has been involved in and in effect ratified the continued ongoing existence of it. Nevertheless, we're here because we want you to approve a special permit. We've applied for a special permit on the 0.58 acres of land that Eunice and her husband Philip own. I think that the last hearing we spent a lot of time on the 501c3. Again, I've gone over your regulations. I'm sure you've scoured them. There's no requirement that we prove beyond a reasonable doubt that we're a 501c3. It doesn't say that. It just says you have to prove you're philanthropic, or that you're not for profit, or I think actually I was looking at the wording a minute ago, I think it says, or any association not for profit. So anyway, I believe we've established that, not just because Eunice is part of this non-profit, unincorporated association, which I've described in that letter that I submitted to you, which you can look at, I guess it's the government.org, irsgovernment.org site, and you can see that Dawn Page and Eunice as Eunice is a member of that board, enjoy the status of having the right to claim the nonprofit status under 501c or C3, but they don't need, I don't believe they necessarily need to show that. There's a lot of comments at the other press meeting. Well, you're a pet boarding facility. You need 5 acres. We're not a pet boarding facility. We're not applying for pet boarding facility. We know we need 5 acres. That's not us. And so, lastly, I guess the other part of what I wanted to just demonstrate tonight, I was out there today. Have any of you gone out there to see this? I invite you all to go. the location of the properties is significant. The houses are probably 500 feet apart, 350, 500 feet apart. The boundary line between where this entirely caged in with a green fence, a green screen, which blocks odors and also blocks and prevents some flies. It doesn't prevent them in entirety. That's in an area which is blocked from the view of the next door neighbor, except unless you're on the second floor. And I know that there's been other concerns, I'll mention them in a minute, but I think the green screen as a wind barrier, helps to reduce that problem. We're also tucked into the, if you went there, you saw where it is. It's tucked into the corner at the end of Whitfield Street. You've got the train station on the backside. I might as well start using my diagram, right? But I'm going to lose you on the audio. Here we are. Here's the train station over here. There's a stairs up to the train station, right on the back of a property.
I think that actually goes to Whitfield Street.
Well, Whitfield Street, sure, that's right. And there's another set of stairs over here. And when you look at this, it's bounded by the train station. It's bounded by, I guess that's an old Whitfield Street, which is about 50, 75 feet in the air. If you fell off that, you'd roll down pretty far. So it's tucked into this corner, and then there's the pen, which is over here, which we've already described. It's got a 12 by 16 foot cage, which are escape-proof cages. It's got a 17 by 17. I guess I pointed to the wrong one. The smaller one's obviously 12 by 16. The larger one's 17 by 7. And there's a 2 by 5 shed. So we've got about 500 square feet, but not, completely occupied by the cages. I gave you the information last week, but I just want to say a couple things. First of all, there's been a bunch of complaints about, oh my God, there are rats. There are rats. Well, first of all, there's been no animals there since April. Point two, raccoons and rats are mortal enemies. Raccoons eat rats. Raccoons are the natural predator of rats. Number three, there's a high grass area around the, Freeman's house. I'm not making any kind of judgment, but they like to have like a foot or 2 feet tall of like wildflowers, and that's their yard, which is an area where, rats, rabbits. Anybody ever been to Block Island? You ever seen all the rabbits on Block Island? So I'm just saying that causes that situation. We've never had any rats, except for maybe 3 years ago. We had one, I think, in a woodpile. Dennis Johnson, the then health director, came out and inspected, and we got rid of the woodpile. That's the only rat that we've seen. And again, I don't think the rats sit outside the cage and say, gee, I hope those raccoons come out, because they're not going to do that, because the raccoons eat them. And we have a mint garden that surrounds us. The mint garden also, as you probably know if you're a gardener, it repels rodents. We've got that. I don't know if you saw that on site when you went out and inspected. So we have this low impact use of this property, which I believe, maybe Eunice could say this, maybe the Freemans agree, there's more noise and smell generated from that train coming in. Because that train, when it comes in, I was sitting out there today and I heard it and I was like, wow, you sit here next to this every day? Well, that's part of that area. So we're applying under 273-38, which permits us an accessory use, under 273-16A, which permits us to apply if we can satisfy you that we're nonprofit for this type of rehabilitation. There could be limits on the number of raccoons, there could be limits on the number of possums. Those are for you to decide. And I think that we're willing to accept all. We're willing to accept any kinds of suggestions that help us to continue to provide the service that we provide to the town and the surrounding area. Now you might jump on me and say, wait a minute, why are we providing service to the surrounding area? Well, your plan of conservation and development talks about that. Your plan of conservation and development talks about preserving Guilford and its lands and its waters and its natural habitat, including its wildlife. It also talks about a goal number 5 and goal number 6 to help the southern Connecticut area. It talks about it. I'm sure George McCall knows all about that because they helped in 2015 to write that plan. And we support, it says one of the goals, I think goal number 5, to support individuals in the community and the environment who are providing services to meet our goals. I'd like to conclude with just a couple of quick points. Look, the town public works is down the street. in this building, there are houses across the street. There are houses next to the town public works on Pearl Street. Sometimes we have to give up of some of our personal concerns for the greater good. We have a situation where someone's providing something that's for the greater good of our community and our area, and that is providing an opportunity to let this woman, in her charity and in her generosity, take care of orphaned animals and get them back to health and then release them into the natural environment. Our goal is to keep the wildlife alive. That's our goal. And I would like to conclude by saying that as we've gone down this road with a lot of comments and so forth, I think you can find a way to manage the type and nature of this use to meet its purpose and also meet the concerns of the neighborhood. And that's all I'd like to say. Thank you very much.
Quick response. Do you feel Bill has been recused from this meeting. Do you feel it's necessary for him to stand up and say, I am recusing myself, or?
I suppose, yeah. So, I mean, I guess it was done so, we're on Zoom, so it's a little weird, the screen goes blank and then somebody says they're not here anymore. So I thought it was necessary to say that because he's a neighbor, that he would be recused because he has a personal interest in the outcome of this proceeding.
Okay, I'll just flat out ask. Bill, would you stand up and please recuse yourself?
Hi, I'm William Freeman, 301 Old Whitfield. I recuse myself from the hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. And I'm here to answer more questions, but I'm just going to get a little water. That's all right.
A couple other questions.
Yep.
Aaron, can you talk to us about the site plan and the ordinance change? Are there?
Sure. Can I borrow a copy of the... Thanks.
I think we're at the end of the rope here on the cord, so you'll have
Okay.
to slide over a little bit.
Yeah, just to confirm what Attorney Crosby indicated, yesterday the Board of Selectmen did hold a public hearing on an amendment to Article 3 of the Town Code, Wild Animals. I did make a copy of this text. The public hearing was held, and ultimately the Board of Selectmen adopted the resolution as written. And the line that I guess, as Tom had indicated, the original ordinance prohibited the feeding and sheltering of raccoons and other animals specified in town. An exemption was created in the ordinance to allow an individual who is licensed with the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection as a wildlife rehabilitator. In addition, language was added indicating that said person's facility for wildlife rehabilitation and all rehabilitation efforts remain in compliance with the Guilford zoning regulations, Connecticut Public Health Code, and the Town of Guilford Health Code. The ordinance was further amended to detail the storage of waste materials. The enforcement authority was given to the Director of Health, and penalties for offenses were also spelled out a little clearer in this ordinance. So as this may be of interest to the Commission, this is the first time the ordinance is specifying a facility for wildlife rehabilitation, so the Commission may wish to discuss what that use may be, whether that's relevant to the proposal before you as a not-for-profit facility of philanthropic, charitable, agricultural institute. And does that give you a little...
We currently have no specific definition for wildlife rehabilitation facilities, correct?
That's correct. That is not defined in the zoning code.
Okay. Nor do we have any standards with respect to those.
That's correct.
So we've got some work to do for us.
So I do, let's see. As Attorney Crosby indicated, he wanted me to discuss the site plan. The site plan was submitted. It is, I don't see a seal on that. I'm not sure if,
I did send you a PDF with with his signature, and he signed it, if you look at your PDF.
okay.
And he's a licensed architect. He said you could look me up at the Consumer Department, but
I do. I do agree that he is a licensed architect, yes. But as far as there are, the zoning code does detail specifics of the site plan. The commission did deny that request for a waiver of a professionally prepared plan at the last meeting. So this information was submitted. I did not speak with the architect regarding this site development plan. I'm not sure specifically if it's referenced from a survey or what the base map was, or if this was just based on a site visit. It is a scale drawing. There aren't necessarily dimensions called out, but I believe it is drawn to scale 1 inch equals 20, if I recall. I think that's
Okay.
all I had for that.
Any questions from commissioners before we proceed to public comment? Yes, Jamie.
Thank you. Can you just clarify for me the line that's in between the two properties, between where the cages are positioned and the adjacent property? Is that about 20 feet?
That's
Is that
probably,
the
that's
property line?
about 22 feet to the property line, and I think on one end of the structure and about 24 on the other. I did bring my handy dandy 1 to 20 inch or 20 foot ruler, but there's 22 feet here, about 24, 25 feet here. This is the property line. This is the, I think he calls that out on the map. It says property lines, and he draws an arrow to that, and he draws an arrow to the one on Old Whitfield Street.
Great, thank you. I have another question. Did the architect look at the prevailing winds over the site?
I only looked at the winds. I know he went out and made a physical inspection, physical measurement. I know he also took, I think, one of the maps on file and drew it, but he made his own measurements. But the winds, you're asking for?
In terms of which direction the wind is blowing over the facility?
No.
And then my last question is, does the site plan give detail to the number of cages that are in each of the, you referenced the 12 by 16?
Right, and that's one of the reasons I invited you to come in, because I'd like, if you did go out to see it, you could go in those little, they're like rooms, and within them they have, looks like almost like, I don't know, amusement park. I mean, there's things hanging from the ceiling that animals can crawl in. There's old tree trunks or whatever, they're plastic or whatever they are, and so forth. But those cages, there are 2 cages in the 17 foot by whatever it is I just said a minute ago, and then I think there are also, there's only one, there's one in the other, but there are also, there's also a cage. I mean, if you're really that interested in the detail, there is a cage that he didn't draw that holds emergency, whenever there's an emergency or there's some kind of a, what?
They're stainless steel quarantine cages.
Quarantine cages, if there's some sort of, they need intensive care, they're in this little cage till they get removed and put in the other.
I see. Thank you. I'm just trying to, I remember Ms. Fortin's letter of support from our last meeting, and I'm trying to reconcile some of the measurements that she gave in that letter and understand where the request for, I think, 40 animals is coming from. So I'm trying to get, like, if anybody raises chickens, like, you're supposed to have a certain number of square feet per chicken. That's what I'm trying to get to here. Like, what is the sort of the regulated square feet per animal? And is that sufficient space to house 40 animals? Maybe my questioning has gotten a little too specific, but those were from...
I probably would let Eunice, Demond, Eunice, you want to come up here and answer those questions? Those are, I know that the cages are regulated by the state, but I don't know the dimensions that they require.
Okay, these 3 cages that are all wired are specifically for raccoons. And within their measurements, I'm allowed to house 25 raccoons. Within the other pen that's over here that says PP, that's a possum pen. I can house how many possums in there. And then there's two very portable cages. One is a very large parrot cage, and one is a 4 by 4 by 8 feet tall squirrel cage. So most of the caging is very portable. I can put it anywhere in the complex, wherever I need to. If the raccoon cages are very full, I want to move the squirrel cages so they're not seeing eye to eye. But now that I've put up the wind barrier, they can't see each other, so the squirrels are a lot more comfortable being in those cages.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I got a question for Aaron, just as far as the definition of a professional site plan. You had some questions, I'm not sure they were fully answered. You know, Attorney Crosby said that he sent you a PDF with the architect's seal or signature, but does what has been submitted, does it meet the requirements of a professional site plan based on what your experience and what we've required in the past?
This particular plan that is in the record does not have a signature and a live seal on that plan. You do have, and I guess I can.
But the measurements on the lot, are they appropriately designated as far as sight lines and property boundaries?
There are some stakes indicated on the map from surveyor stakes on the adjacent parcel on the north or the northwest side, I guess. The property lines are indicated on the map. However, I'm not sure how they were determined. Attorney Crosby referenced that the architect did reference a map on file. There is no note on the plan referencing a survey, so that is unclear to me. As I said, there is a scale on here, although dimensions are not called out on the plan.
I'll go back to my question. Does it meet the requirements that our department has for a professional site plan?
I would say that there are some outstanding items on the site plan.
I mean, Attorney Crosby, I mean, is that something that you can have the architect that was hired? This is a very important task. Can they address those items? Just to be sure that it's airtight, it's clear, there's no room.
I'd be happy to go back to him and ask for that. I think we have a situation where, because we're nonprofit, we're getting volunteers that are doing volunteer jobs, and that doesn't excuse not giving you the details you're asking for. But we could certainly give you, but he does have the boundaries. I mean, I guess he can give more details about reference maps if you'd like. I know that your regulations allow an architect to draw a plan as well as, of course, an engineer or licensed surveyor.
This commission did require a professional site plan. So I'm just trying to keep this on the straight and narrow. That's all I'm trying to do.
I understand. And a professional site plan can include an architect's drawing, and it can under your regulations, and it was signed online. I just didn't bring the signed copy.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Any other questions before we move to public comment? Okay, as I said earlier, we'd like to ask individuals to try and keep their comments at 3 minutes, but we will require it to be kept under 5 minutes. There are a lot of people that would like to speak. So our first speaker this evening, Judith Murphy, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you very much.
If you could stand up and state your name and address for the record. If you want, I can give you a timer. I'll do that just in case.
My name is Judith Murphy. I live at 765 West Lake Avenue in Guilford. I grew up in Guilford. Here, I was born in 1952. I think there were less than 5,000 people in Guilford. I graduated high school in 1970. There were 12,000 or more. And I don't even know what our current population is. You've got a daunting job, and I'm in awe of what you have to do. My credentials for speaking, in 1967, I was a student representative of the Guilford Land Trust Commission.
You should go closer to the mic,
Oh,
I
yes.
have trouble hearing out there.
Guilford Land Trust Commission, headed then by Richard Curtis. He was my mentor, and that was when the West Woods was set aside as town land. And I had the blessing as a student to sit with people making decisions in the committee and learn how it was done. In 1967, when I was a biology student with Mr. Sinati, we were down in that land that is now got a house on it that didn't back then in 1967. It's a lowlands, it's a floodplain, it's a swampland, and rats and snakes and flies and all kinds of critters lived there, and they were really there in 1967. It's a habitat thing, and I'm confused as a Guilford girl. Another one of my credentials in 1970, I organized the first Earth Day program at the Guilford High School. I really care about Guilford. I care about our tradition of setting aside lands, and I'm confused as to why this structure was built in the floodlands or swamplands. I understand the train station is an attractive draw, but as somebody who's moved back here, having lived away from here, if I need to get to New York in the morning, the train isn't going to get me there. It doesn't leave Guilford early enough. It would have to be the bus. And as I drive around my old haunts, by the way, this was Church Street School. I went to school here, kindergarten 1957 through third grade 1960-61. Yeah, this is home. I'm home, and I feel really, you know, everyone from Henry Whitfield to Carl Balustracey, I really kind of feel the presence of the people. I was privileged to grow up here, to be mentored here, and to be given an astonishing education here, and I'm very lucky to be able to come back here and live again, and I'm grateful. But it bothers me, this whole contentious thing. I would ask the people who built that property, why did you build a 3,300 square foot property? I didn't even know you could have 0.35 acre lots in Guilford. I mean, when I was growing up, there's no sewer system here. It's hard for me to wrap my mind around the choices these people made, but they're here. But I think some of the complaints don't have to do with units, they have to do with habitat. The habitat that I had the privilege of studying and being part of growing up here. So my request is for the extraordinary level of scrutiny, and I think it's right to have the scrutiny. Can it still be applied on all sides? I really think what Mr. Freeman and Ms. Dolce have tried to do may have maybe not been as well thought out, and they may have some responsibilities, but they can't go, it doesn't, the evidence that I see doesn't support that the sanctuary or the rehab center is a source of rats and some of their other complaints. So I would just ask people to keep as much of an open mind as you can and to consider, you know, a good structure in a bad location may not be a good structure. You know, it's in the swamplands, it's in a wetlands, and you're going to have the denizens of that habitat long after we're all gone. I think that's all I really wanted to say. I thank you again. I'm going to see the rest of my time so others can speak. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We appreciate your comments.
Thanks.
Michael Fry, would you like to speak? So just, if you get close at 4 minutes, I'll say 4 minutes.
Okay, we'll take that one.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate it.
My name is Michael Fry. I live at 279 Old Whitfield Street in Guilford. This special permit should be rejected as the current facility usage is not appropriate land use in a heavily populated residential area. It has raccoons and other feral animals from Guilford and neighboring towns. These animals are usually injured, abandoned, or diseased in some way. They require constant feeding and removal of their waste. Food and waste of this nature become an attraction for rats, which can eat up to 10% of their body weight per day and are known to carry disease. They then use the facility as a breeding ground and reproduce at an exponential rate. A female rat can have up to 6 litters per year, and each litter possibly 10 to 12 pups. The backyard compound is so situated as far away from possible on the house at 311. This allows rats to easily expand their territory into the nearest neighboring yard. Food and waste also generate obnoxious odors and flies in abundant numbers. The picture banners of the raccoons hung on the backyard compound fence have the potential of creating an attractive nuisance to people passing by on the street. These banners appear to exceed in the size permitted by the town. The existing facility was built without regard to building codes or ordinances. Thus, this backyard compound has the potential to create a health hazard to the community. Again, I request that this request be rejected as the facility is unacceptable land use at this location. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, appreciate it. Steve O'Connor, would you like to speak? Or should I say, like, continue to want to speak? Not really.
Hi, my name's Steve O'Connor. I live at 265 Old Whitfield Street. My wife and I have been residents of Guilford for more than 20 years. We moved to 265 Old Whitfield Street about 20 months ago. There have been comments about whether someone should build a house next to something that's known to be a animal rehab center. We lived here for 22 years and had no idea until sometime in May that that was an animal rehab facility or compound or whatever other people have been calling it. It's not, if you know Eunice, I'm sure it's well known, but if you don't, it's not. So to say that someone built a house in an area next to an animal shelter, they should know what they were getting into, I think is a little bit over the top. Along the other things I'd like to point out is, it's been pointed out by the attorney for the applicant that there is no, and you guys have discussed it, there's no current zoning ordinance for this type of facility. So the closest thing, and I know it's not the same, but the closest thing is a pet boarding facility. And in no way does any of the information on this site plan or on the construction of the compound itself or the enclosures comply with anywhere near the vast majority of those regulations in that part of the zoning code. For the special use permit, there's also other requirements that the enclosure or the structure must be in the type, character, and size in harmony with the neighborhood. I don't believe that the current enclosure meets any of those requirements. In addition, it abuts the historic district. So I believe, if I look at the map correctly this afternoon, that the Freeman Dolce property is the last property in the historic district on that side of the street, whereas 311 Old Whitfield Street is not in the historic district, but that property does abut the historic district on the side of the Freeman Dolces, and also the house across the street is within the historic district as well. And I don't believe that the current enclosure is really in line with the goals of the historic district. As you all are probably aware, Guilford is working to try and establish an affordable housing complex, a group of apartments across the street behind Rollwood Park, which is also in and around the historic district. The town has set very strict standards for the type of buildings and the impact it has on the neighborhood. and on the town in general. We don't see that the current compound at 311 has any of that as part of its development, part of its growth over the last year, or any of the other things in line with what the town is looking to try and do in its development plan. The last thing I want to say is, and I don't know if this is the appropriate place to say it or not, but given that there's no current zoning ordinances, and there's nothing in the current town ordinances about this, is there some way that the town of Guilford can work with the other towns in the area that bring these injured and orphaned animals to Eunice to find a place and build a facility that meets the needs of the animals and also meets the needs of the town and its neighbors? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Catherine Kiernan Burgansky, sorry, did I get that wrong?
That's close enough. Hi, my name is Catherine Kiernan Margansky. I live at 9 Farmview Lane in Guilford. Mr. Crosby stole some of my thunder. I did a little research on rats today because I was kind of grossed out when I heard that there are rats in the neighborhood, and I wouldn't want to live next to a facility that was causing rats. So the first thing I found out is that rats are very smart animals. They know when their predators are around, and if they could smell the predator, they're not going near them. So they're not going near raccoons, because raccoons are their #1 predator. They also don't like the smell of mint. So if there's mint in the yard, they're not going to go there. They're going to go elsewhere. So you have a train tracks, rats run down train tracks, they come out of the marsh, where are they going to go? They're very skittish animals. They go to hide. They go to places where the lawn is unmowed. They like to eat wildflowers. They don't like flowers that smell like lilacs, mint, eucalyptus, things like that, but they love wildflowers. They love to hide in tall grass. So there's a nice little habitat right next door to Eunice, and I hope the town does address that maybe that's what's attracting the rats to that area. Obviously there's rats all over Guilford, but why are they in that neighborhood? And that could be why, that they like the tall grass and they like the wildflowers. Also, just a quick comment on the last speaker. He was talking about that we should consider this a boarding facility. If you look into lawinsider.com, a boarding facility means an animal facility used for the care and temporary boarding, including daycare of dogs, cats, and other animals normally kept as pets in return for money or other consideration. Eunice does it for free, they're not pets. Boarding facility does not include an animal hospital that only boards animals receiving medical treatment. So I think you can throw the boarding facility theory out. It just doesn't work here. So anyways, thank you, Eunice, for all that you do. We're very proud of you in Guilford, and I hope the town does the right thing for Eunice.
Thank you for your comments. Alicia Dolce?
Should I assist you?
I don't think you had, if you could just take your name and address, that'd be great.
I have to lower this because I'm not very tall. My name is Alicia Dolce, and I have lived at 301 Old Whitfield Street as of January 2019. I just want to correct the record. 301 Old Whitfield is not in a floodplain. I am not here to disagree about the benefits of the service that Eunice is providing to Guilford or surrounding towns, but rather just state that the locations are not appropriate for a number of reasons. The size, scale, and intensity of the present rehab and rescue operation, known as Little Rascals, which houses rabies vector species and other wildlife, is not appropriate for a residential neighborhood located in downtown Guilford in close proximity to homeowners and heavy foot traffic. Despite the description that Little Rascals has been in, quote, existence and operated for more than 3 years,
Photos taken from 2017, the year we purchased an empty building lot, tell a different story. When you look at the photos from Google Earth, and I those included in the packet I handed out, you see that the only thing next door was a single shed, modest in size with miscellaneous supplies. Frankly, it looked like any other backyard with a shed. There was no signage with the name Little Rascals, but even if there had been one, this entity was not and is still not registered with the state of Connecticut as a nonprofit. So until recently, there was just not much of a digital breadcrumb trail or footprint. Additional photos taken from my yard show the dramatic increase in size and scale of the structures, starting in the spring of 2020, with the construction of a second shed and through the fall, when a row of open-air cages was added towards the back. A photo from May of this year, taken from the street, clearly shows that the operation has substantially increased and now has a sign and prominent fencing. Another factor is the capacity of the animals is discretionary. The state licensing agency, Connecticut DEEP, does not control or limit the number of animals that a wild rehabber can accept. They work with them and they make recommendations, but essentially it's discretionary. Currently, Eunice has agreed to take more, I guess no more than 25 raccoons at a time. I didn't know about the other animals. But in a prior site visit into 2019, Dennis had noted there were over 40 animals, and that would have been when the facility was a lot smaller. Eunice does have a reputation for having a very big heart. It would make sense. It's probably hard to say no. Finally, Little Rascals is open 24/7. As indicated on a yard sign that was placed a few feet from my property line over the weekend. So I think the questions of size and scale and intensity of operation are really important to take into consideration for this application. The other thing I want to address are the considerable negative impacts. Little Rascals is approximately 20 feet from my property line and about 45 feet from my back deck. As soon as we became residents in 2019, we immediately began to experience negative impacts that are detailed in the letter that I submitted. Most notably, a foul and pervasive odor, and a large presence of flies on our back porch where we eat. But the most concerning negative impact have been the rats, which we've had in our yard since 2019, well before we established a pollinator pathway meadow in our front yard, and continue to be there since mid-June on almost a daily basis. In the July 9th, 2019 notice of violation and blight ordinance issued to Eunice, we learned that the foul odor and flies were coming from animal waste and other noxious sources. But the most alarming observation in that report was, quote, the dirt area on the north side of the shed revealed old boards on the ground with numerous rodent burrows.
One more minute, okay?
Yes,
Thanks.
I'm almost done, thank you. With numerous rodent burrows scattered throughout. Information submitted from the health department indicates that a rodent infestation was also noted in July of 2020. And in her May 5th, 2021 letter, Lori Fortin of DEEP, Lori Fortin mentions that during a site visit in April of this year, she and Eunice talked about limiting flies and rats, which is a challenging task for anyone housing animals. In closing, Eunice could do everything that DEEP recommends to try and minimize the negative impacts on her neighbors. But the realities of caring for wildlife, specifically raccoons, present formidable challenges. And that's a major factor that must be taken into consideration for this location. If the members of the PZC Commission have not yet made a visit, I urge all of you to do so. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Very good on the time. I know. Rose Morales? Did I get that right? Sorry. Morals? My apologies. I added an E, didn't I?
Hi, I'm Rose Morals from Claws and Paws. We're located in Littleton, Connecticut, 2389 Corbin Avenue. Many don't understand that rehabbers are licensed by the state of Connecticut. We are volunteers. We have no grants. We have no stipends. We have to build our structures from our own pockets. And there are requirements. If you're into construction, you know how much it costs to buy hardware cloth.
It has to be half an inch or quarter inch depending on the animal you're doing. Doing little raccoons, they say the square holes have to be half an inch. You have to have it on the ground. You have to have it on the roof. You have to have it on all 4 sides of the walls. And you have to have a second barrier. This comes out of our pockets. The state does give us something. When they do give our license, they email it to us so we can use our own paper and ink to print it out. Okay? Now think about volunteering. You guys are volunteers, I imagine. Imagine if you had to pay for the rent of this place, the utilities, the custodian that comes and cleans it up, the paper towels and Windex that is used to clean up this facility, the security guard for the people that come in. You as volunteers have to go into your wallets and pay for all this. That's what Eunice does. Okay, when she pays her mortgage, she's paying part of it, the rent for the rehabbing. When she pays her utility bills, she's paying for the animals. Okay, yes, we do get a little bit of donations. You get $20 for a squirrel if you're lucky, and you spend $150 to take care of the squirrel. Raccoon costs $1,500 out of your own pocket. There are no grants. Formula. 22-pound bag of formula, $300. Yes, you have rats. You want to get rid of rats? Get rid of Guilford. Get rid of the beauty in Guilford, the wildflowers, the wetlands. And then why don't you just get rid of the owls too? Because, they make a mess. You got pigeons that go on your windows. You got the beautiful beaches. I bet you there's other animals that mess it up for you. Let's get rid of all the wildlife. Why would I want to come to Guilford? I live in the city. I love the countryside. Guilford is where I would come. Why would I come to Guilford if you don't have wetlands? And you're blaming this on Eunice? Eunice does have raccoons, and it is true. When we try to get rid of a pest, here's a clue. You have groundhogs underneath your shed? Grab your dog shit. Throw it underneath the shed. Why? It's a predator smell. They don't want to be where that monster is that might eat their babies. Same with rats. Like somebody mentioned, raccoons are the enemies of rats. The only thing is the raccoons are in this hardware cloth cage and they can't go and kill the rats. So don't blame that on Eunice that the rats are there. But if we were able to let the raccoons loose, maybe we can get rid of your rat problem. Okay? So please keep that in mind. You say, get a facility. Very easy to say. Who's going to pay for that facility? You guys can't even donate and support a licensed rehabber. Imagine having to pay the rent, the bills, the security, okay? And the insurance. Your town will say no to that. They can't afford to. So please, if you want to save money, support Eunice. Okay, she not only rehabs animals, she rehabs humans. We have volunteers that are getting their license. They're becoming new rehabbers to go back in their towns and help.
1 more minute.
Okay, so she is going to defray the animal intake here by mentoring. She's been doing this. We have people that go to her and get life skills by helping animals. They get emotional therapy by helping animals. You're going to take that away. That's all I got to say. I was going to say more, but some people took my stuff away. So I have to go on the fly. I'm sorry about that, but I hope you guys support Eunice, not just today, but always. She always needs help. She always needs financial donations. Please keep her in mind, especially when you do your taxes. She's a good tax write-off.
Thank you for your comments. Pat Collins.
Hello, my name is Patricia Collins and I live at 8 Shell Beach Road in Guilford. I was in a pickle. There was a house across the street from me that was in construction. They were doing the attic and they were doing the second floor. The construction one of the construction personnel came to me with a box. In it were 2 baby raccoons. They said, what are we going to do? Can you take these? I said, okay. What do I know? I have a bird and 2 cats in my house. Oh, sure, I'll take the raccoon. So in a panic, I called up my veterinarian. My veterinarian said, I don't do raccoons, but why don't you call, look in the phone book, look under wildlife rehabilitators, see if, you can get somebody to help you out. I said, okay, I'll do that. So I went in the phone book and I found Eunice in Guilford. Fabulous, down the street. I mean, not even 10 minutes from me. So I called her up and she was phenomenal. She calmed me down. She told me, to hydrate them, how to settle them. And to make a long story short, she got these emaciated creatures back to wonderful health. She gave them their rabies shot. She gave me their distemper shot. And while all of us were going around with masks because we were so contagious to each other, my raccoons were totally vaccinated. They had their distemper shots. They were of no, they were probably safer than your dog at this point in time. And I was able to see their release into the wild. And that was a fabulous, fabulous feeling. And I was at her property quite a few times. And you're saying that it's in the center of town. It's sort of down in a gully and by the railroad station. And when I was there, there must be a town barn or something right across the street because there were millions of trucks going by. I mean, I'm sorry, Eunice, but it's the property. If I was to buy a piece of property, I would not have bought the property next door to her unless I had some kind of an end game. So I don't know why the gentleman bought the house next door, but I think you probably have his number because you work with him. Please don't let him take this facility away from the town of Guilford because she's wonderful and I don't know what else to say because it would be a crying shame if you took her good works away because the police count on her, the fire count on her, every animal control officer is calling her day and night. She's a wealth of knowledge, and it would just be a sin if you let this gentleman take this facility away. I'm sure there's accommodations that can be made on both parts, both Eunice's part and his part, to make it fair for both. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment. Garth Varian.
Hello, I'm Garth Varian. I live at 4 Shell Beach Road, and I've done some volunteer work at Eunice's place. And there appears to be a tremendous public need for the service that she provides. While you're down there, her phone rings constantly. Her minions come and go with boxes of different kinds of animals, and people are transporting them to wherever they need to go. They're going to the vets. They're all getting their shots. As far as rabies, I think that's the safest place in the world if you're worried about rabies. They've all had their shots. Just the other day, a friend of mine who has a boat down at the Guilford Town docks called me up and he said, there's an animal living in my boat. What do I do? I said, you need to talk to Eunice. And within minutes, Eunice was down there and dealing with the problem. It's the police, it's the townspeople, it's everybody. We all have wildlife issues, and she has an astoundingly big heart and takes care of all these animals. And they're not being kept as pets, they are released into the wild when they're healthy enough to go. And it just seems like a kind and decent thing to do. Everyone should go down there and see the operation when it's up and running. It will warm your heart. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Meg Smith? Meg, there she is.
Hi, my name is Meg Smith. I live at 66 High Street in Guilford. This hearing isn't about the size of Eunice's heart, nor is it about the value of raccoons and other wildlife. This is a zoning hearing. As this committee, of course, knows, zoning is how the government regulates and develops land within its control. It helps balance a town to ensure proper land use and provide value to all citizens that own property. As well, zoning helps protect the local environment and keeps property values stable. Those are the points I would like you to focus on. This hearing is the result of a Guilford resident reporting an unsanitary and unsafe situation in a dense, well-trafficked residential and historic area, an area that expressly has not and does not permit the particular use of a rescue such as Little Rascals. I live nearby and often walk or bike ride over the railroad bridge on Whitfield and have experienced the odor and seen the embarrassing, dilapidated conditions of the rescue and its adjoining buildings. The premises are a blight on the town and look very much to be like a homeless encampment. The buildings are unsafe as well for both people and animals. Can they withstand a storm and high winds? Can they protect the animals in the neighborhood during extreme weather events? Certainly they don't appear as if they can. This hearing is an attempt to circumvent established regulations and customs about how residents enjoy property. Residents cannot open a business, for-profit or nonprofit, in an area not appropriately zoned. There are many examples of endeavors that purport to do good, but must nonetheless comply with the ordinances of the town. Establishments, money-making or not, must check the local ordinances along with the required state laws and locate accordingly. Many organizations do fundraising if needed, or adjust their plans in order to comply with the law. I would like this committee to consider the people as well as the animals, the residents and visitors to Guilford who are exposed to the unsightly conditions at this property and may be in harm's way because of the flimsy building, odors, and vermin it engenders. I ask the Commission to keep its attention focused on the central issues and move accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Stevens?
Hi, my name is Mary Stevens. I live at 66 High Street in Guilford. I believe a wildlife sanctuary in the middle of town is simply a bad idea. Wild animals are meant to be feral. In the long run, interaction with humans does not benefit them or us. If sanctuary is deemed necessary, the facility for feeding, treating, or harboring the animal should be sited in a rural area at a reasonable distance from nearby homes. It's precisely because of so much interaction with humans that these animals need sanctuary and treatment. And if the cause of their distress is not human cause, but rather nature at work, then we shouldn't be interfering. Have we learned nothing from the many viruses that have jumped from wild animals to human beings? Allowing this permit is a slippery slope and reflects short-sightedness. Not only is a wildlife facility inappropriate for a residential neighborhood, it is a concession to the notion that wildlife and humans should share habitat. I listened to some of the testimony yesterday, one of which mentioned the loss of animal habitat. Yes, that's a fact. But what are humans going to do about it? Just keep encroaching on the wild places that are homes to these animals and then try and rehabilitate them when they disrupt our lives? It's like raising a shoreline home 5 feet to try and keep Long Island Sound out. Like the necessity of taking bolder climate action, we need to take bold action on habitat preservation, rather than continually playing catch-up, because we can't stop our consumption and intrusive practices. I encourage us all to take a longer view to find ways to separate wild animals and humans for the good of both. The animals will flourish if left to their own devices in healthy habitats, and humans, with wise and urban rural planning, would do well to contain the areas where they live and work. I have no doubt that Little Rascals is a caring and important service, but it's in the wrong place. My recommendation to PZC is that you do not grant this permit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Hey, come on.
Don't do that.
Kimberly Osborne. I'm sorry, Carbone. The C was kind of looked like an O.
Sorry. Hi, I'm Kim Carbone. I am here to support Eunice Mond and Little Rascals.
State your address.
Sorry. I live in Fairfield, 11 Glen Drive in Fairfield. I volunteer at Little Rascals. I've been doing it since last August, and this is not really a matter for the, for this, but I have to say, this has changed my life for the better. It's a really great place, and Eunice is a really great person. But this is planning and zoning issue, so that's not the point that I'm trying to make. First of all, the comments about moving the facility. Wildlife care requires constant attention. Eunice lives next door, and she's able to care for her animals and check on them and clean their cages and feed them and change their water and all those kinds of things. It's just not practical to have at another location. The other issue is there really isn't a specific category that covers wildlife rehabilitation. So it's kind of like when you look at it, where does she fall on that table of uses in the zoning code? Yes, she can qualify as a nonprofit, a business or an institution now operated for profit. She does qualify for that. The only item on that list that has to do with animals, I believe, is wildlife sanctuary. Someone else mentioned a wildlife sanctuary where it is, they said it's not an appropriate place. However, in the zoning code for residential zone 3, wildlife sanctuaries are allowed. Typically, people think of wildlife sanctuaries as a place where animals live throughout their lives, but generally it can be defined as a place where animals are protected. Animals and plants are protected. So if you think about it, wildlife sanctuary is not defined, but according to the code, Guilford would allow a place that would protect animals forever. So it doesn't define that. It doesn't say what kind of animals could literally be on that property forever for their lives, or just for rehab and release. So it seems that whatever, if planning and zoning does allow something like that, it seems to make sense that a special permit should be allowed for someone who just temporarily cares for wildlife and then releases them to their natural habitat. I think that's it. I ask that you please consider voting yes for this.
Thank you for your comments. Paige McHugh.
Hi, my name is Paige McHugh. I don't talk often, but I live at 555 Route 81 in Killingworth. I met Eunice DeMond roughly 5 years ago when my son and I accidentally rigged up a nest of baby rabbits. I had met Eunice once before when she had an information table about her rescue at the recently closed Pet Value in Guilford. I was so impressed with her knowledge and compassion, I asked for a business card. Living near the woods in Killingworth, I knew I'd need her services. Turned out I was right. I started following Eunice immediately on Facebook. I've been interested in wildlife rehabilitation myself, so I found it interesting and educational to follow her. I learned to leave fawns alone in the spring, unless they had crinkling ears that showed that they were dehydrated and mom was probably not coming back. I learned that possums hit on the road are often females with babies inside who, given half a chance, might actually survive in the hands of someone like Eunice. To this day, I do have some hand knits in the back of my car just in case. The only thing greater than her knowledge is her heart. Wildlife rehabilitation is quite literally her life. It's her passion in every sense of the word. If you called her at 2 a.m. and said, I found a dead possum and I think there are babies in her, she'd probably tell you to bring the poor thing over and she'll do the rest. That's just the kind of person she is. In the rescue community, and for anyone who has ever needed her services, she's quite well known for her rescue and rehab work. Her work may not be fully valued by her new neighbors, but she means the world to us and the many orphaned and injured animals who are blessed enough to come into her care. She is as much a part of Guilford as your firefighters and police. She provides a service that can never be repaid. Sadly, she has to raise money just to keep doing what she does for free. The fact that no one has yet argued that Eunice and Little Rascal fills a community need speaks volumes. She is needed here by both the community members and the wildlife that shares this community. As such, has there been any attempt by the town to mediate the situation to seek a mutually agreeable solution? Given that Eunice's family has owned the property for over 100 years, it shouldn't be solely incumbent on her to make changes to satisfy her new neighbors. While it might not be town protocol, I think the situation calls for out of box thinking. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Eunice DeMond? Okay. You're welcome to speak at the end if you'd like.
Thank you.
Linda von Steenberg? Sorry. Come on back up.
So I'd like to say thank you for turning up the mics or however you did before, because none of us could hear you. So that was very helpful. So I'm Linda Van Steenbergen. I live at 191 Flagmarsh Road here in Guilford. I brought my 9.5-year-old with me. Oh, I'm sorry. To the microphone. Okay, just talk about it. Is that better? You can tell I don't speak in public. No?
You guys go right into it. Just snuggle on up. There we go.
Okay. So I'm Linda Van Steenbergen. I live at 191 Flagmarsh Road in Guilford. I brought my 9.5-year-old with me tonight so that she could see how all of this works and how town government does make a difference. So I've been in Guilford my whole life. I used to live up in North Guilford. Life up there with wildlife, with deer and bunnies is different than downtown. But it showed me an appreciation for what our town has available and what's in our own backyards. I'm in healthcare, and I care for people, all of our neighbors, our 4-foot neighbors as well. And growing up here in a town that speaks volumes of the schooling, the religious education, the support of the Scouts, I don't think that there's any of those organizations that would say, oh, we're not going to help animals, we're not going to help our neighbors. And if someone is trying to rehab the animals, maybe we need to come up with something where the town and she are in partnership. Maybe if it's not meeting the acceptable vision of what's needed downtown, something could be done for assistance. A couple weeks ago, we found a little baby bunny in our yard. Its back legs were injured. I don't know how. It was just sitting in our yard looking very sad. So I said, oh, let me see what I can do. I called the Dan Cosgrove Center in Brantford, knowing that they're a shelter, but thinking they would have a lead. They were already closed. I called deep, they were out. No answer at any of their lines. And I'm thinking, all right, I can call my vet, but like the other speaker said, what are they going to tell me? So I called the police line, the non-emergency line. The officer literally said, I got the number for you, let me pull it out. Her name is Eunice, she lives downtown, and she'll be the one to help you. I said, well, what if she's not available? What if she's busy? No, you want Eunice, she's the only one. Literally, a police officer tells a resident to call a citizen, a fellow citizen who's volunteering. And I said, okay. I said, do you know where she is? Oh yeah, you'll find her, she'll give you the address. I said, okay, so I call her, calls me back a few minutes later, write down the address, box up my little bunny, go down there. And I hadn't been down Old Whitfield Street in a while. Nobody would, unless you're either power walking the block to wherever it might end up, where these trucks are coming and going. But it's a dead-end street, down below the main road, with, train tracks and a big fence. So while the other speaker said big foot traffic, I don't know who would be walking down there for pleasure. You might walk the main road to go to the beach. It's also away from the town center, and really, there's not too much other than visiting a resident that you would go to do down there. Also, being that it's down the hill, someone had mentioned about the prevailing winds. I don't think that, and I'm not an expert in this, but it doesn't seem as though the wind coming by is going to blow anything directly across someone's yard to another with the hill right there. Excuse me. So I just feel like if we're a town who is supposed to do and provide inclusivity for all the residents, adults, kids, animals, whoever's been here and is part of our environment, why aren't we being more inclusive and helping who is here to help each other? Obviously, like
One more minute.
I said, Eunice is clearly a benefit to the community. It just seems like there should be a partnership to someone who is definitely helping. So, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Angelina Carnivale? Frank?
Very close, close enough.
How close is Frank on that?
Could we possibly turn the volume up considerably? It's awfully hard to do that.
We'll try and encourage speakers to actually just get a little closer to the mic, if that's all right. I mean, we don't control the volume, but...
Can everyone hear me okay?
And by the way, feel free, there's about 8 seats up here in the front that are open if anybody wants to come up.
My name is Angelina Carnivale. I live at 44 Spruce Street in Northford, and I am here to support the application for special permit submitted by Eunice Demond. I work here in the town of Guilford since September of 2014. For nearly 7 years, I've spent roughly 5 days a week serving the public of this town. And while I don't live here, I believe my experience working here, helping people, getting to know Guilford families, has given me insight into the character of this town, and I consider myself a part of it. I am not officially representing my workplace, but speaking personally as a concerned citizen. People in opposition to Eunice's rehab operation are basing their arguments on fear rather than fact. People fear that which they do not understand. I believe Lori Fortin's letter, part of the public record of the June 2nd, 2021 meeting, as the director of the Wildlife Division of the State of Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, specifically addresses in great detail and accurately provides context and assurance that Eunice's operation is up to code. Anyone who still has complaints or concerns after reading Lori's letter needs to go back and read it again. I'm a rehabber myself, though not a rabies vector specialist like Eunice, and I learned from some things from that letter. I will not rehash the entirety of her letter here, but rather speak on the character of Guilford and how Eunice fits into it. Guilford cares. Our people care. We show compassion for others, for the environment, for animals, for everything. This is evident in the numerous civic and volunteer groups in town which do everything from promoting native pollinator gardens and banning plastic bags to unveiling witness stones and forming anti-bias groups. Our young people regularly put together their own charity and awareness events to bring homelessness, gun violence, cancer, education, and a myriad of other worthy causes to the forefront of people's minds and enact meaningful change. Our adults looking to get involved in town have their pick of groups and organizations to volunteer with and make things better. All of this signifies the character of a town that embraces compassion, selflessness, charity, change, work, self-improvement, and meaningful action. Eunice's wildlife rescue operation perfectly exemplifies these virtues. She has volunteered for years to assist wild animals that are orphaned, injured, or sick. She has shown continual improvements to her structures and processes to make her operation clean and safe, and to address neighborhood concerns. She has helped rehabilitate hundreds of animals over the years who would otherwise have not survived, and who are usually imperiled in the first place due to human activity. Eunice is a town fixture, and it would be a terrible shame if the town of Guilford allowed her operation to be shut down. Not only would the town and the whole state of Connecticut lose an experienced rabies vector species certified, highly qualified rehabber, but Guilford would have a major blemish on its character. Eunice's operation should be celebrated for the great service it provides to the town and the entire state, not shut down because of ignorant neighbors' baseless complaints. We need more rehabbers, not fewer. We need more rabies vector species.
1 minute.
Thank you, rehabbers, certified rehabbers, not fewer. We need Eunice. I fully support the proposed special permit application to allow this existing low-impact nonprofit to continue operating within the town of Guilford. Thank you.
Scott Singer.
Scott Singer, 800 Village Walk in Mulberry, 704 Mulberry Point Road, Guilford. Dear Guilford Planning and Zoning Commissioners, my wife Colleen and I had the good fortune to meet Eunice in May of this year when, upon our return from Florida, we learned that we had a female raccoon who decided to make her birthing suite in our attic. After reaching out on the Simply Guilford Facebook page, Eunice responded immediately and over a 2-day period helped us humanely evict the raccoon mother and kids from our attic. So we have firsthand experience of Eunice's commitment to wildlife well-being and helping others on the shoreline who do not have the experience in managing wild animals like she does. We have also known Alicia Dolce and Bill Freeman for 27 years. They are sensitive and respectful neighbors and committed environmental conservationists. Alicia and Bill also bring something to Guilford. They are respected thought leaders in Connecticut on the emerging field of green building techniques and zero net energy / net positive consumption methods for residential housing. Eunice, Alicia, and Bill all bring something positive to the social and humanitarian fabric of the town of Guilford. In reading through the minutes of the prior public hearing, including the attorneys representing both sides of this issue, it appears that while the Planning and Zoning Commission has the authority to grant a special permit for Eunice, there is simply too much messiness regarding sanitary requirements for wild animals in a residential zone and who does what regarding code enforcement. Most importantly, the R3 zone is just not suitable for a wild animal quarantine facility. We are not talking about a dog breeder for designer puppies. We are talking about a wild animal quarantine facility. Also, its current location on a non-conforming building lot is unacceptable from a zoning perspective. The Planning and Zoning Commission has the option here of denying this application without prejudice and referring it back to the Guilford Board of Selectmen for further evaluation. From Eunice's driveway, there is Guilford town property less than 300 feet away on Drive Way. That's the name of the street. The town owns over 17 acres in this area with a sizable portion that is already zoned I-1. I want to repeat, the town of Guilford owns 17 acres within 350 feet of Eunice's driveway. Why not allocate a 20-foot by 40-foot building site for a secure and sanitary wild animal quarantine facility? Just like the beautiful welcome signs to Guilford that are going up, we could rally the private donations in collaboration with the town, donating some space for the facility. Let's turn a messy and emotionally charged issue into a positive one with a public/private collaboration for Guilford. We could let Eunice continue her passionate work on wildlife rehabilitation close to our home while preserving the current R3 residential zoning requirements. My wife and I would gladly provide monetary donation and time for such a fundraising. For the above reasons, the application before you for a special permit should be denied and delegated up to the Guilford Board of Selectmen. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would donate too. Mark and Shannon Simmons.
Hi, I'm Shannon Simons. This is my son, Mark Simons, and we live at 375 Old Whitfield Street, right across the train tracks from Eunice. We have known, well, I have known Eunice longer than he's been alive, and he calls her Auntie Eunice because he's known her as long as he's been alive. And we just wanted to come here and support her because what she does is fantastic work, and the community really needs someone like that. We had an issue, we have chickens, and one of our chickens was sick, and my husband and I brought the chicken over at midnight to her house, and she gave him a shot of antibiotics, or her, sorry, and, you know, problem solved. You know, so it would be such a shame for this town to lose such an important asset to the community, such an important job that she does just out of the kindness of her heart. You know, we can't say enough about it. He actually was on the green with her 2 weekends ago. That was his sign that he made, so did you want to say something?
If she had lost all of, you know, her rehab and everything, she would have nothing on her name because she's done it for such a long time. And it's really important to her, and, you know, she really wants to take good care of him. And, you know, she's the best in our state, so, I mean, we should all just support Eunice and help her, you know, because she needs the help that she can get.
Thank you.
Thank you. Judy Displand, sorry, I'm totally butchering that. My apologies on the butchering of your last name.
Perfectly fine.
I'm used to it.
Hopefully you'll be able to hear me. Good evening, and thank you for having this open forum this evening. I'm Judy Deshbandi. I currently live at 1 Schoolhouse Lane in West Haven. I'm a frat mom to 3 college kids, but I've been a resident of Guilford for 20 years, just prior to 2019. Plan to move back here as soon as I graduate, as a matter of fact. Other than knowing Eunice through just word of mouth all that 20 years, I actually had the opportunity to meet her about a year ago. Her son was ill, and I brought her a meal. That's what neighbors do here. It was COVID times, so we stood outside, taking, quite a long time to talk to each other and get to know each other. While I was there, I never saw a rat, never saw flies, didn't smell any unusual odors or hear any unusual sounds. It was the first I had seen of Little Rascals Rescue, and I had lived in Guilford for 20 years. Another new neighbor, who in fact spoke tonight, Mr. O'Connor, spoke also at the Board of Selectmen meeting yesterday, and he had a similar experience. He'd been here 20 years as well, never knew of Little Rascals. He even commented how his family would walk and run in the area, and he thought it was actually a daycare for children. That means she must be doing something right if we didn't even know Little Rascals was there, and we've been here 20 years. So prior to the Freeman Celebration Green LLC purchase of the adjacent property to Eunice, she had introduced herself and her Little Rascals Rescue to the neighbor and the realtor when they toured the property. And this was in the conversation I've had with Eunice. Her family's occupied 311 Old Whitfield Street since approximately 1906, and she's been a certified animal rehabber for 12 years. She needs to live where she does this mission, as feedings for overnight and it would make commuting impossible. I can't call it a job because she's unpaid for her 24/7 community service. She is a resource to local agencies, including the Guilford Police Department, Animal Control, and countless others that have used her services over the decade. The Freeman Dolce business, Celebration Green Design and Build, moved next to Eunice and moved into that property after they built in fall of 2019. The property, home, and accessory apartment are owned by their LLC. They built and remodeled to make passive and zero energy structures. They call themselves, in quotes on their website, environmental stewards. The webpage did feature an old cape. It was built around 1900. It had been refurbished and rehabbed by them. And it's really close in sort of style and age to Eunice's facility, her home where she lives. You know what they called it on the website? They called it the ugly duckling. That's what they called it. And that was what they called any property that looked like that, apparently. And not everyone has disposable cash to do these big, great, expansive upgrades, and not everyone is in favor of gentrification of Guilford. Surprisingly, these builders also, in the process of completing their build, didn't do this laser grading that's supposed to be done, and Eunice had some concerns about runoff from the construction. She didn't run to town hall, she didn't make a stink to the neighbors, she didn't want to have issues, they were her new neighbors. Meanwhile, Ms. Dolce wrote a letter to the State Department of Energy and Environmental Protection in May regarding her issues with Eunice, but not before Mr. Freeman became an alternate on the Planning and Zoning Committee and filed a cease and desist order. It's not very neighborly. Let me close with something a bit more personal. Eunice did give me permission to share this. Her son had surgery yesterday. He is, again, quite ill. I think with all the ordinance talk, we've lost sight of the humanity of what's happening here. Eunice provides a community service for free. She has to take on debt to cover the legal proceedings that are going on. She's been losing sleep. She's been unnerved. She's suffered personally from all of this, on top of worrying endlessly about her son.
1 minute, please.
So all the money that's lost by both sides of the legal bills could have been used to fix what may seem by some the ugly duckling, that is the Little Rascal Rescue. How ironic, a builder with knowledge of how to improve, offering nothing to this new neighbor. Instead, here we are. You tell me who are we going to call if this committee puts an impossible task of lists on Eunice and forces her to close. Instead, let's get her some funding for whatever is needed to block the view, meet the ordinances, and assist her in her humanitarian mission, which we all benefit from. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Linda Chouinard? Okay. Got it.
Hi, my name is Linda. I live at 72 Stiles Street in Waterbury. I'm also a RVS rehabber. I met Eunice a few years ago. She's a wonderful lady, and she puts heart to rehabbing the wild animals that most of the time are orphaned or also with the people involved where they just take the mother and just dispose of her wherever. We have to remember raccoons are part of the chain of the feeding for other animals. Possums, they kill a lot of ticks. So her saving the possums help us with the ticks. She's very important for here to be here, and we would lose a great rehabber if we didn't have her. With Lori Fortin, she goes through on all the safety procedures that we need to follow. We have caging procedures, we have medical procedures, we have a lot of procedures that we have to follow. As far as the rats, raccoons will eat the rats. So we need to save the animals and have Eunice helping us with that. There's a shortage of RVS rehabbers, so it's important we have her. It's not unsafe. We have to go by procedures with cages, so we need her, and we need her here. We'd lose somebody very important to our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're actually going to take a 5-minute break in order for Shannon to swap out the desk, and we will resume with Marge Shansky when we come back. Thank you very much. I'd like to assure everyone that we have conducted no business. We are resuming the public comments portion of the hearing. We've had an additional name added to the list. Danielle, you're going to kill me. Sorry. Yes, you lattes?
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry.
Hello. Hi. My name is Neil Yoselitis. I am from 12 Barnes Lane, New Milford, Connecticut. Yes, I drove an hour and 15 minutes to be here today. I was a mentor of Eunice. She trained me. I met her back in 2019. My boyfriend and I came as a complete package to go and train with her. I can tell you back in 2019, her cages now don't look any different than they did then. They were still the size it was then. Her neighbors moved in. I was training the entire time their facility was being built next door. I can tell you that it didn't smell. I never saw rats, and I also helped upkeep on these cages. She is the reason why we are what we are and how we provide our service for our community. We even have members of our community who also reach out to Eunice for raccoons. I'm not a rabies vector species rehabber, but I do take small mammals. I take in neonatal squirrels and neonatal possums. I
can tell you that I do feedings every 2 hours when I have babies that weigh 20 grams, smaller than the size of the palm of my hand. Let me take you through the day in the life of me. I also work at a hospital, so I give back to the people in my community as well. I work overnights, so I can tell you, I don't sleep. I worked 5 days in a row just so I could be here tonight. It is very frustrating when I don't understand how a lot of people think that wildlife is not our problem. I also have a degree in conservational biology. So yes, it's not wildlife that's the problem. We are the problem, and we are the invasive species. We are building and we are destroying their natural habitats. Where do you think these animals are going to go? They're going to go to any place they can find shelter, and you can see it in your own backyard. I have groundhogs that are residents. Yes, they dug up my hydrangeas. I don't care. It's the way that they live. They're going to eat the garden that we have. Okay, so we need to learn how to live with these animals. I get maybe 4 hours of sleep a day and still have to go and care for the public people and care for my animals. I have 38 possums right now, and I have proper caging, and I can tell you that I have the space. And I don't have a rat problem, and I also don't have a smell problem. If there are flies, I have 50 chickens too, so I can tell you that chickens smell way worse than anything those raccoons or those possums can produce. My chickens are noisier than what you might think for a raccoon. Let me ask you this. When you move next to a farm, do you complain about the smell from the cows, from the horses? Are you going to make that farmer get rid of their roosters? Because I certainly can tell you that my animals are my therapy. I work with sick people, and I need an escape. And this is Eunice's way of life. This is her freedom to live the life that she wants. And she gives back to these animals. And it's the same thing that we do. If I didn't have these animals, I wouldn't have anything. I would just be a medical laboratory technologist. Nobody knows what we do for that anyway, so what difference does it make? People think it's your nurses and your doctors who run your medical tests, but it's not. I do. I've run all of your COVID testing this year. Well, you guys got to stay home and you found all of these animals. I got to work multiple overtime shifts to provide for you guys to make sure you were all safe. And I also cared for your animals. My phone is attached to my hip 24/7. Why? Because I have people contacting me for help, for questions, and help for animals that I don't take. I don't do birds, but I certainly can help you get to a rehabber who does. And I can tell you, Eunice is the #1 rehabber for raccoons in Connecticut. She's known all over the state. You have Chaz and EJ. Has anyone heard their segment on WPLR? Well, they found Eunice when they had a baby raccoon, and she was featured on their segment. So it's surprising that people don't know the importance that it is that we also help preserve wildlife. Because if we take away wildlife, how are we going to continue to allow the earth to prosper? We're the ones depleting these natural resources for them. So please, I would really like to find some sort of common ground here where we can allow her to also do the work that she does, because there's no way I could do 2-hour feedings and try to get sleep and constantly drive back and forth. I don't go on vacations. I don't do anything. I'm 30 years old and I live a very, very humble life. I'm able to live the life that I want because I get to give back to Earth, back to my community, and back to the people that are a part of all of this. So thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Marjorie Shansky.
I'm going to go to one mask. Be heard better. Can you hear me?
Thank you, yes.
I'm Attorney Marjorie Shansky, and I represent the owners of 301 Old Whitfield Street. And I want to talk about zoning I want to talk only about zoning, the law, and the integrity of the Guilford zoning regulations, because that's the core issue here this evening. That is the jurisdiction of this commission. And I covered many of the issues in my letter to you dated June 1st. And I will not cover them again, so please pull it out if you want to have your recollection refreshed. And counsel for the applicant indicated that he had written a response to my letter dated July 1st, which he did not share with me. I did find it on the city's website, so I was able to look at it. But I will tell you that my letter remains germane and on point, that there's not a meaningful response to the observations that I've made. The use in this case is the wildlife rehabilitation, not the nonprofit economic status, which is a handy, attenuated pull towards something in your use table. And the emphasis of how deficient that label is for what's going on has been highlighted through the discussion of how to regulate it and how to control it. Council said, put standards in your conditions of approval. Well, you know, and he knows, that the only legal standards attaching to a special permit must be in the regulations. You cannot free-associate what would make something work. You are permitted to regulate in accordance with your regulations. You are not permitted to do ad hoc determinations, which brings up another point. The dangerous, dangerous precedent that the notion that somebody can shield themselves under the nonprofit label for a use that has operational issues associated with it. For example, people have testified that they volunteer. I attended the Board of Selectmen meeting yesterday by phone, and I heard one physician who has her office on the Boston Post Road who said she sends her clients, her patients, to volunteer at the facility. Well, where do they all park? Are there adequate sight lines for ingress and egress? And depending on how many volunteers are there, is there adequate fire access in the event, God forbid, that emergency services were necessary? These are all of the things that are germane in the evaluation of a special permit use. Section 80 of your regulations examines those in the standards, and the site plan that has been presented is woefully deficient. It purports to have a scale. It says 1 inch equals 20 feet, but I don't see a single dimension on it. I don't see anything about where people are parking. I don't see anything about traffic circulation. So I think that those are among the things that are missing here.
March, coming up in 1 minute, okay?
Oh, okay, I thought you weren't timing the lawyers.
Actually, the lawyer, I'll pause this, hold on.
But that's okay, I'll
Okay.
wrap up quickly.
Okay, thanks.
There is no legitimacy on an illegal use by the mere passage of time. I discussed that in June. There's been no response to that except to argue otherwise. Argument is not law. Zoning is in the interest of the community as a whole. We cannot elevate the interests of a single individual, no matter how good the work is. The appropriate course here, if you deem a wildlife rehabilitation facility to be an appropriate use in a residential zone, is to amend your regulations to provide it and to adopt standards. For example, under Connecticut law, there's strict liability associated with harboring wild animals. What kind of insurance is in effect? We've heard a lot about the economic difficulties associated with this use. What happens if somebody, God forbid, is bitten or worse? So I think Commissioner Stein asked some very germane questions about the inadequacy of the site plan. I think that I don't have labeled here. Who asked, is there a definition of wildlife rehabilitation in the regulations? No. Are there standards? No. That is an exchange that went on earlier this evening. So the bottom line here is, if you deem it appropriate, and if you do so, by the way, you'll be working offline, you'll be working off of something other than your regulations. If you deem it appropriate to evaluate under special exception, special permit standards, it will fail. It will fail. It must fail in order to preserve the integrity of the zoning regulations for everybody else in the town of Guilford. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Attorney Crosby, would you like to make any final comments?
Sure. Again, thank you, Attorney Thomas Crosby, I represent Eunice Tamana. I want to, again, thank you for your patience. I think you, the way you handled this live hearing was very well. Let everybody come and make their presentations and gave them a chance to speak. We don't like it when we have to make sacrifices for the greater good. We just don't like it. I mean, that was the nature of the war in our society this past, pandemic. Sometimes we have to make those sacrifices go for the greater good. And in this particular case, we have a situation where someone is providing a benefit to our entire community, as I mentioned before, and to the greater area. You don't have to get into the specific regulations of what goes on day in and day out. There are already in place officers, if you will, of the health department and officers of the DEP who regulate that. The cage size, the cleaning, all of the different items that have to be undertaken. In particular, this property is completely surrounded by the screen fence. This property is screened in. There are penned, double-locked cages. The cages are washed every day, sterilized every day, bleached on a daily basis, sprayed with an antiviral spray. You don't need to get into the regulation of those kinds of details. We have to maintain MSD sheets for chemical sprays we use. We have to give that when the state comes in. And the state does come in. And the state did come in. And they came in on April 9th, 2021. And they said in their report, there was no sign of rats. We have all of the other things that we provide as attempts to mitigate what we've been doing there for approximately 10 years. I think your regulations allow this type of activity. By definition, you allow animal shelters. What's the difference between sheltering an animal, which is permitted as a right use, and doing something like we're trying to do here, which is to temporarily shelter animals? I know the distinction was made the last hearing, well, this is like a human shelter, or what's a homeless shelter? Well, there's no difference. We're taking those who cannot fend for themselves and putting them up for the period of time that we can assist them until they can get back into the wildlife where they came from. So I think that you have a basis. I think the philanthropic nonprofit association is a part of your regulations. It doesn't limit this type of use. It doesn't say this is forbidden. In fact, as I said, I think by analogy, the Animal Shelter Commission endorses this kind of use. I would like to ask you to approve the special permit application and let Eunice continue her good works. Thank you.
Thank you. Would someone like to make a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So we've got some interesting questions before us. And I've been thinking a lot about this and doing as much research as I could with respect to those questions that we as a commission have to answer. And so what I want you guys to do is to think about them as I go through them, and then we can have discussion and then potentially make some decisions or not. So I guess one of the things that I would put out there is whether or not you feel it's necessary to have a site visit. And I'll put this just out there first as I go through my list. A site visit to understand the facility as it relates to the zoning that's before us. So the first question we have to ask is under the permitted use. And the application that's been brought forward to us is seeking a permitted use under Table 4, Line 16, stating that this is a facility of philanthropic, charitable, agricultural, historical, and cultural institutions or societies not conducted as a business or a profit. So we need to make a decision as to whether or not we feel this meets that requirement. Beyond that, we would have to approve a special permit, and there's some conditions within that that we need to discuss. If we don't get past one, then we don't have to go to the others, but I wanted to bring it up just from the standpoint that we'll have hurdles beyond the first one, potentially. And that's, does this use promote the health, safety, and general welfare of the community? Now, I think you could argue some general standards, but I think we have to specifically think of community as the area and how it impacts. 3 is animal rescue and rehabilitation facility. Stop that. Is animal rescue and rehabilitation facility, is this permitted in an R3 zoning district? 4 is rehabilitating wild animals in a residential zoning district, a customary and incidental use to residences in a residential district. So I am open to, if anyone feels strongly about any one of those, we can have discussion about it. That's where we are right now. We don't have any motions, we're just discussing this amongst commissioners. Pardon?
Good talking points.
I only try.
You know, one thing I would be curious on is to see what our town council would have to say. I don't believe we asked for an opinion yet. I think it would behoove us to get that.
So with respect to their, well, I think that actually falls to us if I'm not wrong. Am I wrong or am I right?
What's to, whether or
We're
not
talking
to,
about whether or not this falls under Table 4, Line 16?
Yeah, I'd like to see what our town council has to say about
sure,
that.
yeah, we can.
I mean, I think that, I mean, not everybody here is a lawyer.
We can arrange to, we can ask that question.
Okay. That's a good point, and we can certainly do that.
What specifically is your question for legal counsel?
Pretty much,
Are you
does this,
asking him?
right, what is his, representing us as the commission and the town, if he feels this, or she feels this falls, it's still Chuck, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Chuck is our.
What he feels about the regulation, and where it falls on the
With regard
table.
to the facilities of charitable and blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Okay.
I do think that Phil had a point that this is, that the ultimate decision will be on the commission.
Oh, of course, but it's always nice to hear
To
his
make that
opinion.
decision.
Yeah, sometimes we get maybes.
We do.
Yeah. We understand. We can pursue that.
Anyone else want to chime in on that aspect? Are we comfortable waiting on town council?
I think it's important. I mean, to have them weigh in and say that 273-16A, Table 4, Line 16 is germane and should be taken into consideration, I'd like some guidance on that.
Okay. That makes sense to me. I mean, I'd rather,
I'm with Sean on that because that's a key component of the applicants.
okay. Other things for us to consider, does the use promote, and now that we're going to be waiting on town council, perhaps what I'll do is ask each of you while we're, in your own time, to consider the other points that I brought up. And if you have other points that you feel are germane, to bring them up as well. Does the use promote health, safety, and general welfare of the community? Is animal rescue rehabilitation facility a permitted use in the R3 zone? Is rehabilitating wild animals in a residential zone district a customary and incidental use in residences So again, I think the idea is to come back having thought this through with, as much input as you have. Does anyone else have any specific input items that you would like us to ponder?
I'm still focusing on just the standards that we have to follow based on the language that describes the conditions for granting a special permit. I think that's what we have to hang our hats on.
And that was something a couple of people have brought up, a couple of points of what is criterion for special permit.
Yeah.
Specifically, neighborhood character.
Shall be in harmony and conform to the appropriate and orderly development of the town and the neighborhood. It will not hinder or discourage the appropriate development and use of adjacent lots or impair the value thereof. That's just one point.
Right.
That's a key one.
Right, those standards are in section 273-80.
Correct.
I did have those as an attachment in my original staff report that I gave you. I do have extra paper copies here that I had made, although it is also online as part of the record from the first portion of the public
I
hearing.
think we could probably examine those line by line.
Right. So what I would ask each of you to do is to look at the attachments that have been handed out to us. Aaron, how long do we have to make a decision after we close the hearing?
65 days.
65, well, I would hope that we should be able to do that before then. So is everyone comfortable with that?
Yeah, Phil, I just have one more comment about, I know we're looking at 273-16A, Table 4, line 16, but I think also for me, a point in question is line 23, which is the permitting of a wildlife sanctuary. And I think these are all sort of one and the same in that there is an absence of definition here, but I'm not saying I'm not yet swayed that an absence of definition means that we can't permit the use. I would still like to hear from council sort of the discussion about those particular lines and what they would advise. But for me, it's we're not explicitly talking about wildlife rehabilitation, but I can read into wildlife sanctuary some of the activities that Ms. DeMond is doing. So I'd like some clarity on that.
Okay, if we could have Chuck help us with that as well, that would be beneficial.
I think certainly along the same lines, it would be, we should make a recommendation to have, our regulations maybe provide a little bit more clarity. I think there was some suggestions from some of the public tonight about perhaps this is a use that should have a better definition and perhaps some further regulation from the town. Perhaps that's something that I don't know if it would be the zoning committee or the planning committee, but one of those committees, whichever one is appropriate, could potentially take a look at that.
Well, as you know, we're doing the zoning code, so that could be a part of that update.
Has this been brought up yet in that revision of the zoning code?
I'm sorry, what?
Has that been brought up yet?
Not specifically, but I think it clearly could be. But that's not going to have an immediate.
No, certainly. I'm just bringing it up as, some folks have brought it up as something that we should look into, and that's something that we can do as a committee, as a commission.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we have our homework to do. Let's just get through the rest of our agenda. New applications, Fred Ulbrich III and Tammy Ulbrich, 269 Mulberry Point Road, map 16, lot 57-8, zone R5. Coastal site plan for construction of a 750 square foot addition. Receive and set public hearing date for July 21st, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Whitfield and Gosam LLC, 103 Whitfield Street. Just before everyone leaves, I just want to thank everyone for participating and for really being very appropriate. It's really appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Whitfield and Gosam LLC, 103 Whitfield Street, map 33, lot 103, zone C1, site plan application for additions and renovations to existing multifamily structure, including fencing, landscaping modifications.
Our meeting is still in session. Can you take the discussion outside, please?
Thanks. Receive and set public hearing, set action table to July 2021.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Kelly Streeter, 196 Whitfield Street, map 33, lot 11, zone R1, special permit request per section 273-37 for additional lot coverage for certain structures. Receive and set public hearing date for August 18, 2021.
Second.
So moved.
All in favor? I'm going to put you down as the first, Richard. Actually, we'll put Frank down as the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Abstentions? Okay, good. Michelle Gnot Picotto? Oh my God, I'm a butcher tonight. 1327 Little Meadow Road, map 97, lot 38-1, zone R5, special permit request per section 273-19 to convert detached art studio into accessory apartment. Set and receive public hearing date for August 4th, 2021.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Linda Rooney, 74 Laurel Brook Drive, map 9, lot 22-24, special permit request per 273-19 to create accessory apartment attached to existing single-family dwelling. Receive and set public hearing for September 1, 2021.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any correspondence, other business, or zoning officers report?
I have none.
You have none? Has anyone had a chance to take a peek at the minutes?
Yes.
They are substantially correct.
You'd like to make a motion to approve them?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
With no business further before the commission?
wasn't here.
Oh,
Mr. Wallace is abstaining.
okay. With no further business before the commission, would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.